Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So let's get right into this one and talk about the Anthem VIP demo. Oh yeah, and hit that like button if you want to. I'll be your best friend, I promise. So I spent the past couple days playing the Anthem VIP demo, and I have to say I'm actually pretty impressed, and a bit disappointed as well, but we'll get into that soon enough. I'm going to leave the story out of this and just talk about my experience with the demo as a whole, both good and bad. The demo does start you at level 10 with 125 coins, which obviously won't be indicative of the final game. Nonetheless, I feel it's worth mentioning because some people have an issue with how this can possibly sway their initial impression of the game. I haven't spent any of that outside of paint colors for my Javelin, which is the mech your character controls in the game, and honestly I don't really care that much about cosmetic stuff. I just wanted to point that out. Overall gameplay does feel solid. Controls do seem very responsive when you're in your Javelin, although I had to up the aim sensitivity to 50% from the default of 30. Even then, the aim acceleration doesn't feel as tight as it should, as it just seems way too floaty. The Javelin flight controls do feel super solid though, and it was a lot of fun just flying around in an open area. Plus it sounds cool when your boosters kick in. The overall sound design of the game, music, and voice acting are top notch, although it'd be great if the game supported Dolby Atmos since verticality is a big component to Anthem. I do have an Atmos home theater, and setting the Xbox One X to output Atmos just resulted in silent ceiling speakers. Graphically speaking, this is one of the best looking games I've played on the One X. The HDR in this one can look spectacular at times, especially when the lighting effects ramp up in some of the firefights. I do wish the demo had some type of HDR brightness set up to make sure it's properly tone mapped to each display. Hopefully the final game has this option. I'm not sure about the native resolution, but it does appear very sharp in many areas. Although to get the most out of the image, I ended up disabling a couple options. There are options to disable motion blur, depth of field, and chromatic aberration. Disabling motion blur and chromatic aberration tended to make things appear very sharp at the expense of overall smoothness, but I found disabling both of these options made it easier to focus what was going on during firefights, as it can get very chaotic. Motion blur overall in Anthem is a bit of a mixed bag for me. I'm all fine and good with well done per object motion blur, but something about the implementation here just seems off. There's also the issue of pop-in, which is visible when flying around in your Javelin. Running around on foot, I can't say I notice it all that much. During firefights, it's really not an issue, thankfully. Performance is one of the biggest weak points here, dropping frames heavily both in and out of combat. This coupled with the cranked up motion blur really made certain things hard on the eyes, such as when combat gets very hectic with a ton of stuff going on. Walking around Fort Tarsis is probably the most notable area where the drops occur, and it's puzzling why it's happening at times. This is one of the areas that need the most work for sure, as the drops can be very substantial, really taking you out of the experience. Hopefully this can be addressed before launch. Lastly, I just want to touch on these points briefly because this isn't the final code of the game, but there are many issues with the servers and load times right now. There have been many times during the demo where I get booted back to the main screen after initially loading into the game. And there have been many times where I've been dropped at the very end of doing the Tyrant Mine Stronghold, which can take a good 30 to 45 minutes to complete depending on your team. I ended up not getting any loot at all, although I did retain the XP I earned. Getting dropped brings you back to a loading screen, which you'll see often if you play the demo, and they aren't short. These are some of the longest loading times I've seen in a while, with the demo being run off an external SanDisk Ultra SSD drive. I can't imagine what the load times would be on an internal drive. And that wraps up my thoughts on the Anthem VIP demo. Have you guys played it? What do you think of it? Are you going to pick it up when it releases in February? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I post new gaming content every week. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.